Here's a quick overview on Row64 Cloud and Server. So to start with, the Row64 server works through Linux. And the reason for this is just that it's the best uptime and security for a web server, for dashboards. It's the best OS for the cloud. And there are many people using Row64 with a Windows background, so we want to assure them we've made this as simple and friendly as possible for a Windows user. It can be run inside the server, can be run inside Windows as through a virtual machine. And in this video, we're going to go through just some basics so that someone with a Windows background could get a sense, just like the way your car runs, what's happening under the hood and how you could admin it and understand what's happening. The other thing for the expert, someone with a more a lower level server background, Linux background, they often will have the question, how can I swap out this piece? How do I swap the database, the platform, the Linux distro, the web server? How can I customize the panes? How can I integrate it into some specialized custom app that I'm building? So just to assure you that this is something that great thought has been put into, so I would recommend talking to our support team on that. But Row64 is designed from the ground up to take on this these customization swapping scenarios. Also in terms of platform, I think frequently people will have questions about this. If you want to go in the cloud, you can. If you want to have it on-prem, you can. I'll point out one of the ways that for just simple testing, just starting off using VirtualBox or VMware on your local machine can be a very quick way to test out the whole platform. Also bare metal, if you're interested in breaking records, getting enormous number of records, then bare metal could be interesting. And this is also very interesting for people who have very strong security needs. So however you want to work, we're ready to go for that. Now, we ship with an example setup, and that includes Ubuntu. So for the rest of the video, I'm going to be talking about Ubuntu. It's the most popular Linux distro, and it's easy for a Windows user to be productive in it. The web server is Apache, and in this example, the database, Row64 has its own database called RamDB internally, and it's like a RAM cache, and it really accelerates the speed of everything. Our example installers include MariaDB, so that you could run tests with that, but you don't have to use it. Actually, you can do everything with your own connectors or just uploading files to RamDB. But just to show, just in this video, this is what we'll be looking at. Okay, and then when we zoom out and think about connecting data, I'm going to do a demo in a second of our upload button in Row64. So you can just sit there in Row64 and work in a very simple point and click kind of way. If you know Python, we have an API you can connect directly to Python, and then so you can connect using files, or just say you have your own analysis with your own data frames and your own NumPy or your own set of data. You can very easily upload that. So what's interesting about Row64 is it sort of hybridizes a database way of thinking and a file way of thinking, which is really, really powerful. Often you could be doing an analysis of your database, but you want to have a lookup table, or you're looking at pricing something or some kind of consumer data that you want to cross-reference. So Row64 is very powerful for working in a fast file-based way, or pulling live data and mixing those things together nicely. Okay, so here we are in Row64. We're going to show the Connect tab. At this point, I'm not connected. And in my example, I've got a VirtualBox running, and I'm going to start up this server just in a simple VM manner, and then I'm going to connect to it. So we can see now the server is up and running. It'll start in a second. And so from here, we can see, so there is Ubuntu. And now I can just go click on connect to server. I'm going to connect to localhost in this example. You could put the IP address or the URL that you're connecting to. And I just hit connect. And so then that's going to connect to the server. And you can see now that I'm connecting, I have these new buttons available, browse or upload data. So here I can go browse through the example dashboards. But in this case, I'm going to upload some data. So I'm just going to go drag in a example file. So here's a few lines of CSV. Hold on. Okay, so I've loaded these files, this file, and what I want to do is upload it. So then I just go click on the upload data, and here, so this is to RAMDB, this Row64, and I'm just going to put it in the temp folder. I could also, I was saying I had the MariaDB example database. I could upload it to there, but in this case, I'm just going to go to temp and call it a temp file and upload it. And now you can see that this is a data frame if I go look at this, but if I go to my Connect tab, I can go browse and see my temp files there. And now I have it as a live data frame. It's part of the server. Okay, so next let's look at working with paths in Linux and Ubuntu. And just to start off, just to make it as simple as possible, there's this great kind of Explorer-like view in Ubuntu called Nautilus, and it's pretty easy to use. So we'll show you that in a second. It's on the left side. So I just recommend working through that if you're getting familiar with Linux. A cool trick is when you get paths, and a lot of the content, a lot of things for the running of the server have to do with a path. And it doesn't start with C:, like Windows, it just starts with a slash. So if you're in Nautilus on this top bar up here, just click on that and then hit Control L. And you're used to Windows Explorer, you can go type in the paths, and that's just how you type in your path there. And that makes it very easy. So then I could type in the path to look at the log for the server. So that's the first thing we're going to look at. Let's look at the log for the server. Okay, so here we are in Linux, and you can see on the left I've got the Nautilus file explorer. So a lot like the Explorer in Windows, and a lot of the times in Linux you're going to need to work with paths, and it's super simple. Just click on here and hit Control L, and then you can type the path as you go. So we want to look at the log first, which is var log row64. And you can see it just gives me all the options. Linux is very good for autocomplete of paths. And so if you need the log, you just go into there. I can double click on it and I can copy and paste this. For example, if I was working with support and I want to give them the log. The other thing you can do that's nice, in our example setups, we ship with this Sublime, which is a great editor. I prefer it. You can just drag it into there and look at the details of whatever file you're looking at. Okay, next let's look at checking the status of the server. Now, the Row64 server will automatically restart when you reboot it. So if you ever did have a problem, you could just reboot it. You wouldn't really have to know any of this, but it's kind of interesting, just like the dashboard for a car. It's interesting to see how it's working. Now, you do use the terminal for this. This is the only part of the video where we'll be using the terminal. And it's pretty simple. The terminal is a lot like the Windows terminal. You just go and you type sudo, which means super user, which means you have the control over the server. Systemctl, so this is like the thing running the services. And you type the name of the service, which is Row64 server, and then status. So if you type this, it'll give you the status. And you have a few more commands in there. You can start it, you can stop it, you can restart it. Okay, so here we'll jump in and check the status of the server. I'm going to click the terminal right here. Look at the terminal. Also, these little buttons at the bottom just show you kind of all the apps you have. You could type terminal, you can add it to the favorites, you can click on it this way, however you want. And I'm going to type sudo systemctl and then status, and it's just going to be Row64 server. And we'll have to give the password. There we can see it's running. And so if we wanted to stop it or restart it, it's just sort of the same thing. I'll do a restart, Row64 server, and it's restarted it. So this is more of an advanced thing to get into the terminal, but it's fairly easy with Ubuntu. Okay, so finally, under the hood, we'll just show you where the files that you're working with are being made. So when you make dashboards, there's a dashboard file, .dash, that's in var www dashboard. So it's being published on the web, www, and then it's just in this folder. For RAMDB, the files are stored in var www ramdb, And the web server, which is just sort of the HTML files that are making your site, if you wanted to go look at that or hack around in there, that's just the standard Apache path var www HTML. So let's take a quick look at that Ubuntu. Again, I can use our trick with the Nautilus browser, hit Control L, and I'm going to go var www, and I'm going to type dashboards. And so we can see in there, these are the folders that we have in Row64. If I look at the examples, I can see, I'm just going to flip over to list here, and these are the dashboard files that we've been editing. And so it's pretty easy to get in there if we wanted to back up or delete or send a file from one server to another. It's pretty easy to get in there and do that. Now, in terms, I'll hit Control L again. I'm going to look at the RamDB database, which is file-based, and see there I've got RamDB. So here we have a loading folder. While the service is running, you don't want to be sticking new files in there, but you can put them inside the loading folder, and that will pull them into RamDB. Whereas the live data is here, so we can see here's RamDB, here's my examples, and these are basically the files that are behind the database. So then we can work with the Python API to put files in here. We can work with the upload button. There's just all kinds of ways we can edit it. And in our Nautilus browser, we can just go and see where things are and what's happening with them. Okay, so finally, the configuration for the server. This is stored in opt Row64 server conf. It's not critical when you first evaluate the software to use the config file, but as you want to set up new folders, you want to set up users, you want to set up more complex things, this is the kind of core of where the server behavior is defined, and we'll take a look at that. Okay, so here we are in Ubuntu, and we're going to go hit Control L, and then we're going to go open our configuration file for the server. So it's opt Row64 server. See, I can just tab down and grab the right path, and it's in the, if I just go there, you'll see there's the comp folder, and this has the config.json. Now, I'm going to drag that into Sublime just because I think it's a better editor. So I'm just going to go over here and drag it in. And then you can see here, these are kind of the guts of how we're configuring our server, the way we're setting up authentication, the different connections we're going to, what the permissions are there. So just so you know, this is sort of the core administration file for the server. So that's our 101 overview of cloud and server for the Row64 platform. We hope you found it helpful.